Yesterday, the best cyclists in the world descended upon the city of Sacramento to kick off the 2009 Amgen Tour of California opening day prologue.
The comeback kid is back in the USA!
The crowd welcomed back Lance Armstrong to the sport as he raced on US soil for the first time since 2005. Though the Texan didn't win the day, it was a successful return, and he was awarded the Most Courageous Rider jersey for his advancement of his cure of cancer cause. American David Zabriskie put himself in position to win, and local favourite Levi Leipheimer gave it his best shot. But in the end, it was time trial phenomenon Fabian Cancellara who clocked the fastest time and was awarded the yellow jersey by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Today, the peloton heads out onto the roads where the action should be fierce. Will a breakaway steal the day, or will Mark Cavendish and the sprinters flex their muscles? Find out next on Versus.
Santa Rosa, the gateway to the Sonoma wine country, today serves as the finish for stage number 1 of the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. It is cold and wet outside as we await our riders, but it's a different story for us here in the Versus broadcast booth. The riders are going to make their way here. Guys, we are nice and dry. Hello, everyone, along with the two whose baritones are the barometer for all of our broadcasts, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwen. I'm Craig Hummer. Phil, prologue's in the books, and as you called it yesterday, the hors d'oeuvre has been served. So now let's talk about what we learned, specifically with 3 of the main storylines we're following: Lance Armstrong, Levi Leipheimer, and Floyd Landis.
Well, let's start with Lance Armstrong, and I must say I don't think he's ever been away from cycling, has he? Because as we saw him in the prologue time trial, we could be turning the clock back to his last Tour de France in the year 2005. He was smooth, he was efficient, he was a little bit shaky on some of the corners, but basically, the old Lance Armstrong is there. When he crossed the line, he was 7th best time. When he finished the day, he was 10th. Levi Leipheimer, Lance's tip for a final victory in a 3rd year in a row. Look at his face as he goes out of the start house. Leipheimer has really come to this race as he races towards his hometown. Don't forget, today in Santa Rosa, he goes out in 2nd place overall. That's a good position to be in. Floyd Landis, I think there's still a question mark on the comeback here of Floyd Landis. He doesn't say a lot about his performances, but we know he's been training well, but it certainly didn't come out in the time trial. And let's not forget, he did crash a couple of days before this race began. We'll hold out on him for the moment.
Let's take a look at the overall standings. What we did learn as well is Fabian Cancellara is the fastest in that prologue distance, a 2-second gap to Levi Leipheimer. David Zabriskie, the U.S. time trial champion, showed he is on great form by finishing in 3rd. So I think it's safe to say you guys both prefer the warmth of our booth here at the finish?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think it's safe to say all 3 of us enjoy the warmth of our booth here at the finish a little bit more. None such luck for the riders out on the road today. Wet weather in the forecast, but Paul, at least on paper, it sets up to be one for the sprinters.
Yes, I think the toughest part about today's stage is going to be the rain, which the riders will probably have in their faces for most of the 108-mile route. The riders leave Sacramento this morning to move across to Davis, the start town, and then they've got 2 small 2nd and 4th category climbs along the route before dropping down into Santa Rosa. If we have a quick look at the profile, it looks pretty vicious, but those climbs are really what I would call undulating climbs. They will create a little bit of difficulty for the sprinters, but you can be absolutely certain the sprinters will be looking to make sure they stay in the main pack today, because this might be one of their only chances of a bunch finish.
Well, speaking of bunch finishes and sprinters, of course, Phil, the one name that comes to mind is Mark Cavendish. He has shown over the past year that no one can match him on speed. Does it look like today could be a day for him as well?
Well, he will hope so, because he'll have looked at the route himself. Cavendish is the self-proclaimed fastest sprinter in the world right now. And when you look at pictures like this, he wins not by half a wheel, but he wins by 5 or 6 lengths. As long as he gets himself in the right position in the run-up towards the line, then Mark Cavendish knows, and what's more, believes that he can beat just about anybody.
Cavendish cannot do it alone, Paul, as you well know. So what does he have to do throughout today's stage to put himself in position?
Most important thing for Cavendish is to keep in the main pack, to keep out of the wind for as much as time as possible. Then on the run into town, you will see his team High Road Columbia, come to the front and make a big train at around about 40 miles an hour. With about 300 meters to go, hopefully they will have all swung off, and that's when he can catapult himself into the final victory attack.
That's a good game plan, but Cavendish isn't going to be the only one, Phil, is he, who has that plan as well?
No, this has got a great field of sprinters, and they're not going to get too many chances. Tom Bonen is in there, the arch rival of Cavendish. Tor Hushoff, another super sprinter from Norway. Oscar Freire, 3 times a world champion, and JJ Haedo, a winner of 5 stages, and one of those wins right here in Santa Rosa.
And we figured the weather was going to be big news today, and it has been throughout the beginning moments of stage number 1. However, the real big news to hit the peloton is the man in the yellow jersey at the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. He has left the race. Fabian Cancellara has abandoned. We're told that it is due to a fever that he's been suffering from. So absolutely incredible when you look back at what he was able to do in the prologue yesterday to still come out with that win if he was feeling under the weather. That doesn't bode well for his competitors the rest of this year. But Cancellara, he is out. That would mean by default the yellow jersey would go to Levi Leipheimer out on the road. Of course, with the time bonuses here at the finish, as you can see the crowd excited to await our riders. They're going to see some time bonuses at the end. And when that does take place, if it's the sprinters that are there and they're within the distance within Cancellara, we could see a leader jersey change at the end of today. Well, what's happened so far in stage number 1? As we thought and predicted, a breakaway did in fact leave early on. It was Francisco Mancebo from Rock Racing who took off on his own. The peloton surprisingly letting him go. The gap got to a few minutes, and then it was Tim Johnson from Ouch, presented by Maxxis, and David Kemp from Fly V Australia who would close that gap, and that is how they would cross the first sprint bonus in Winters, California, at only 13.6 miles into the race. Those 3 would try, and they have succeeded in staying in front. What I meant to say was that Tim Johnson and David Kemp would try to catch Francisco Mancebo, but by the King of the Mountain first stop, a Category 4 climb they call Cardiac Hill over California Route 128, Mancebo would still be in front by about 1 minute and 35 seconds over Tim Johnson and David Kemp. But the weather continues to be the big story, not only here in Santa Rosa, but throughout the route from Davis to where we're waiting at the finish line. A cold day in Northern California, hasn't even come close to 60 degrees, let alone 50 degrees. The wind, as we've heard from a lot of competitors this morning, has factored in already, and that is indeed what should continue until the riders finish here in a few hours' time. Lance Armstrong has in fact had not only a flat but has crashed en route. We will wait to confirm that a bit later on, but it has not been a good day for the Astana team after having a few of their bikes stolen in Sacramento last night. Thankfully, the Trek folks at Trek Travel and a few of their representatives were able to get all those bikes replaced. One of the bikes taken was Lance Armstrong's time trial bike, and he's told us that he's got another one to use in Solvang if they're unable to recover those bikes by the end of the week. When we come back, we'll hopefully have some pictures to bring you of the racers out on course, but with this weather, who knows what's going to happen. What we do know is that 136 of the world's best are headed our way. Back in Santa Rosa here, you can see the finish line. We're awaiting pictures from the route. Close to 108 miles today from Davis to Santa Rosa, stage number 1 of the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. It'll be a few hours time from now when our riders come and do the 3 finishing 5-kilometer, 3.1 mile circuits to end up. The crowd, they've been here already for hours, sitting around in this rain. It continues to grow. The reason, of course, that we cannot see pictures at the moment is it has a lot to do with the weather. We can't get our helicopters up and our planes up to do the RF microwave feeds. So we are continuing to wait on those pictures at the moment.
And we are now getting started here.
Well, guys, as we continue to wait on these pictures for stage number 1, why don't at the moment, Phil, we recap what happened in the prologue. We've already talked about how Fabian Cancellara is out, but yesterday he did quite well along with a number of others.
That's absolutely right. George Hincapie, always a good prologue rider, a very good rider all round. This is yesterday in Sacramento. Don't forget, when the riders started on this short tester around Sacramento itself, starting in the shadow of the state capitol. George Hincapie, when he left the start house, was chasing Tor Hushoff, who had just finished with the best time.
Yeah, Hincapie is a man who's extremely good at this kind of time test, and he was already, I think, on fine form in the early part of this season. We saw him just a couple of weeks ago racing in the Tour Down Under, and I think there he was using the Australian event, which was run off in much warmer conditions in California, to home his legs and his form for this race.
Hincapie riding in the colours, new colours for the year. He was in Team Columbia last year, which were blue. Now they are yellow and white. And he was pushing the time here of Tor Hushoff. He wasn't going to better it, but he was certainly showing that he was on form for this race. Very, very popular American. As you can see yesterday, conditions in Sacramento, they were ideal for racing, in all honesty, because there was not much sun around. Temperature was reasonably cool, but for the bike riders, happily dry and not too much of a troublesome wind.
Hincapie would cross the line at the moment. That would be just behind Tor Hushoff. A bit disappointed was George. As you see his reaction, couldn't believe he came up that close, Phil.
He just lost by tenths of a second there at the best time. It wasn't a stand anyway, neither was Hushoff. They'd slipped down the overall towards the end. One man who would get the better of them was Dave Zabriskie here, rides for Garmin Slipstream. He's the champion of the USA in the time trial. And Paul, for me, it looks as though he's got himself some sharp form for this stage of the year.
He certainly has. Zabriskie is an exceptional individual time trialist, and Johan Brunel once said that this man has the most aerodynamic position of all the professional athletes, and there's a good study of his aerodynamic style. You see how close together his handlebars are. He almost looks like an arrowhead as he cuts into the wind. And when he came up to the finish line, this was an extremely fast time, because Dave Zabriskie stopped the clock in a time of 4 minutes and 35 seconds. And that was going to be the bar for everybody else to try and beat.
Back in 2005, he established his name around the world when he crashed while wearing the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and he abandoned that race on the 9th stage.
So at that point, David Zabriskie showing great form. The Garmin Slipstream fans had to be happy. But the man they had all come to see, his first time racing on American soil in over 3 years, Phil, Lance Armstrong.
Well, we never thought we would call this man in action again around the world of cycling. He shocked everybody at the end of September last year, saying, "I'm coming back." And we thought, what is he saying? He must be joking. But here he is back, and his presence has lost none of its magnetism. The crowds are turning out in double the numbers to see this man back in action.
This is a very difficult discipline of the sport. We watched him in the Tour Down Under in Australia, and he was in fine form. But a prologue effort is completely different. It's extremely violent, especially when you work out it's only over around about 4.5 minutes. It tests the level that a rider can push his heart rate up to. And rumour coming to us that in that individual time trial yesterday, Armstrong at 37 years of age was able to get his maximum heart rate up to 197. That's not bad.
That's pretty good, Paul. In case you don't know his reputation, he's won the Tour de France 7 times straight. No one will ever do that again. He's ridden it 11 times. Oh, he's a bit wobbly, though, on his comeback, wasn't he? And he's won 22 stages of that great race. That was probably his only mistake, Paul, and that probably cost him a whole second, which would have cost him 5 or 6 places on the finish.
But his ride and his cadence was very much the same as that of the years gone by. When he came up to the finish line, he wasn't going to get inside the time of Dave Zabriskie, but certainly he was getting inside of the hearts, I have to say, Craig, of all of the spectators here, because many, many people turned out to see the big Lance come back.
10 to 15 deep along the streets of Sacramento. They were in for a treat, and they were not disappointed as Armstrong would cross the line and would later tell our Bob Roll how, as you guys have already mentioned, it felt pretty good to go around the block a few times.
So the big man is back and looking forward to the race. But so far today he's had a rough ride. Bike stolen overnight, a crash and a puncture, and the race is less than 3 hours old today. And if you're just joining us, well, we are waiting for pictures to come in to the race from out on the course. The weather is atrocious as we go to the man that won the time trial yesterday, the champion of Switzerland and the Olympic champion, Fabian Cancellara. He abandoned the race, by the way, today, but yesterday he lived his great moment.
Well, he certainly did. He is one of the big powerhouses in the world of the individual time trial. We saw that in Beijing last year when he won the Olympic gold medal. Immediately after the Tour de France, he got onto an aeroplane and flew to China to get himself ready for his big goal of his career. He stopped the clock there with the fastest possible time, and there was only one man left out on the course who could possibly challenge that time, and that was going to be Levi Leipheimer. But the man from Switzerland had really set the bar high.
Congratulations from the governor there, Arnold Schwarzenegger, governor of the Golden State of California. He would be your eventual winner. For Floyd Landis, Phil, a return to action after a couple-year hiatus.
Yes, and we still don't know just quite how his legs are, because it wasn't a great first time out for finding his racing legs for Floyd Landis, but we are conscious of the fact 2 days before this race started, he did crash while training. Although he said he wasn't too badly injured. They're not going to tell the riders if they are they? And it was just an okay time trial that left him well down the field overall.
He actually eventually finished in 88th position, but I have to say his position did not look all of that comfortable at the front end of the main field, and I'm not sure that after 2 years away from the top level of the sport, his engine was able to get up to those high revolutions. But I wouldn't discount the man who wears number 101 once this race gets out onto the open road. There it'll be slightly slower once we get into the big mountains of the Sierras in the southern part of the state of California, and that's where he may well be able to allow his legs to do the talking.
You're right, Paul. In fact, Lance Armstrong has said time and time again, one of the reasons he wanted to go to the Tour Down Under was to get that racing under his legs. This is the first time we've seen Floyd in a race since that 2-year break. And so it all begins for Floyd Landis and his new team, Ouch, presented by Maxxis. So we went to the sentimental favorite, the final one out of the start gate, Phil, Levi Leipheimer from Astana.
Yes, in 24 hours, if you're home in Santa Rosa, that's where he's riding to at the moment as the potential new leader of the Tour with the abandon of Cancellara today. But Levi Leipheimer, who's won this prologue twice, and he's won the race twice overall. He didn't win the prologue last time. It was Cancellara, of course, but now Leipheimer is looking extremely determined.
Well, he looked extremely determined when he came down the starting ramp, but as he came up to the finish line for the first time in the whole of the prologue time trial, there's a few specks of rain started to come down, but they did hold off enough to allow the man who wears number 1 as defending champion of the Amgen Tour of California to finish at least in the dry.
So the man has ridden the Tour de France 6 times and was on the podium in 2007 when he finished 3rd. He's aiming for a 3rd consecutive win, and he's got off to a great start with this 2nd place here. And now best time on the road today, as I say, with the loss of Cancellara. But the moment Francisco Mancebo is ahead of the race, and if he holds that lead, he'll be a clear leader by the end of this day.
Well, we were right out onto the roads of the first days of the Amgen Tour of California in the green points jersey, but the opening prologue only separated the first 23 riders by 10 seconds.
There are your top contenders. Fabian Cancellara, your winner yesterday. Leipheimer, a close 2nd. David Zabriskie, as we mentioned, would finish up in 3rd. Mick Rogers from Team Columbia, the Australian, showing good form as well in the top 5. And Tor Hushoff there. Take a look at George Hincapie in 6th. Tom Bonin. Mark Renshaw was the early leader out on course. Svein Tuft, the Canadian time trial champion, in the top 10. And then Lance Armstrong rounds out those top contenders.
Some of those names, Bonin, etc., and Cavendish, they're the sprinters who, if it comes back together, we might be calling their names again today.
The rain continues here. Yesterday, however, the temperature was a little bit warmer. The rain was a little bit less, and Bob Roll caught up with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Sacramento.
We've seen the Amgen Tour of California grow incredibly in the last 4 years. You have to feel good about the way the state of California has come out for this event.
Well, it's really great, and we know for so many years we have tried to get this race here to California because California is such an ideal place to have a race like that, and it's getting more and more popular every year. I mean, there's now so many people showing up, and this is being covered all over the world. So it's great for tourism for California, and it makes people see how great California really is, so we love it.
And for yourself personally, to see see these great athletes on the streets of the state capitol?
Well, you know, coming from the athletic background, you know, I really can appreciate that because these are human machines. When you see them in that race, when you see their power, their endurance, their willpower, the fire burning in the belly to win, I mean, it's just unbelievable drama there that you see. And I just watched the finish race here, so it's really extraordinary. And then to have someone like Lance Armstrong, who has gone through so many ups and downs, and especially with his health and cancer and all this, to come back like that is such a great inspiration to so many people all over the world that you can do it. That even when you have a setback health-wise, that you can make it, you can fight through it with the will. And so he's such a great example for that.
Well, thank you very much, Governor.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, hopefully, Bob, he also said we'll have you back next year, because that's what the gang at Amgen, of course, all the organizers of the Amgen Tour of California are expecting a 5th year. But we've got to get through number 4 right now, and stage number 1 has already turned out to be a difficult one, not just for the riders, but for our crews. We're trying to get you pictures. Thanks for bearing with us here on Versus. Hopefully, we'll have those soon of the riders out on the road. We're back live on Versus, and unfortunately the pictures we can only give you are here from the finish line in Santa Rosa. The pictures from out on the road, that's stage 1 from Davis to where we wait here in Santa Rosa, we are unable to transmit at the moment due to the foul weather out on the course. The snow level has dropped to almost 2,000 feet. The fog and rain have made it unacceptable for the planes to get up to transmit those images. So as we continue to wait here, we will also continue to talk about what's going on as best we can out on the course. So the rain, gentlemen, still coming down. We're enjoying a nice warm day, however, Phil, in our booth here.
Well, I mean, Paul has been a professional cyclist, I've been a cyclist, but these are the days you can't relish at all, and it's rather nice to be in a warm commentary box, but it would be nice to now bring you real pictures of the Tour of California.
It certainly would, but just coming on to the weather conditions, things have changed an awful lot in the last 10-15 years with the arrival of some pretty serious cold weather gear. You know, the guys have extremely good thermal jackets to keep them warm on days like this, and as long as the weather conditions stay the same throughout the whole length of the course, they know just exactly how to wrap themselves up. Although there are certain riders who psychologically get damaged by bad days like this, and Lance Armstrong, for one, is not one of those guys, and he has produced some of his best ever performances in races where the conditions have been just like this. In 1993, it was absolutely torrential downpour in a place called Oslo in Norway, and that was the day that he won himself his first professional road racing title. Most people only know about Lance Armstrong as a Tour de France rider. They seem to forget that before cancer, he also had an extremely successful professional bike racing career.
You mentioned Lance Armstrong, Paul. Well, he certainly is on the note board, so to speak. He's on everyone's watch as we get ready to bring those pictures for stage number 1. But this morning, Bob Roll was able to catch up with the one and only Lance Armstrong. Here is what he had to say.
You must have been pleasantly surprised with the pretty good result in yesterday's prologue.
I was, yeah, you know, I was pleased. I mean, everything we saw on the SRM said that power was good, heart rate was good, 197 max heart rate for an old guy is not bad. So felt good, and a good start for not just myself, but for Levi and the whole team.
And you have some special numbers on the machine you're racing today. Could you tell us about those?
Same bike as we had down in Australia. Got the 1274 on there, which was the exact amount of days since the last stage of the Tour de France in 2005 and the first stage of the Tour Down Under. And then on the back, you've got 27.5, which represents an approximate number of how many millions of people died around the world in those 1,274 days. So kind of hits home when you hear a big number like that, and you consider this state is about that many people. So just in 3.5 years, an entire state of California is wiped out.
Some bad news for the team last night. A couple of bikes went missing, including.
They just disappeared. Yeah, it happens. I mean, it happens. You always sort of hear about it, read about it. It's never happened to us, so I was a little surprised, but you know, I guess we'll. Can't be very smart to take that bike. There's only one in the world. I mean, if you're going to take it and put it in your bedroom and be the only one to ever look at it, it's a good deal. If you show one other person, I don't see how you get away with that. So eventually we'll find it, and I've got a backup for the TT and Solvang if I need it, and then and we'll see. It's a small world these days.
Pretty grim weather today. Maybe some crosswinds also.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, with winds and even, no telling what this turns into. You get a little higher, they say that the snow level is as low as 2,000 feet. So what do you do in wet bike races? You stay up front, you stay with your team, you stay out of trouble, and if you have the opportunity to take advantage of the weather, you do it.
All right, well, best of luck, Lance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Straightforward approach for the 7-time Tour de France champion. But let's talk for a second, Phil, about who would dare take those bikes out of the Astana truck. I mean, that is just seems absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it happens an awful lot, I have to say, and I'm very sorry to say it, that these bikes are very valuable. I suppose Lance is a big image, but it's happened this year also in Spain to the Barlow World Cycling Team, and their man Robbie Hunter won the race the next day riding somebody else's bike. And it's a very sad thing. I mean, well, all petty theft is just not on as far as I'm concerned, Craig. But Lance seemed to be taking it lightheartedly. I think he was hinting there, it's a well-known bike, so don't try riding it, guys. We'll spot it. Yeah. But there we are. It's still raining here, everybody, as you can see, but we're hoping to get your pictures very shortly coming in from the outside.
That's a look that the peloton knows all too well. Lance Armstrong rides again. The banners tell you that all around the route of the 2009 Amgen Tour California. We still await pictures here on stage number 1. We'll be back. The 3-lap circuit finish around Santa Rosa has quickly gained a reputation for thrilling finishes and record crowds. In 2006, to the delight of the roaring spectators, hometown hero Levi Leipheimer raced into town with a yellow jersey on his back. The winner of the stage was CSC's JJ Hayedo, but Levi would hang on to the overall lead. In 2007, Levi once again rode into Santa Rosa in yellow, but a massive crash with 1 lap to go almost took him down along with about 50 other riders. Levi finished more than a minute behind the winner, Graham Brown, of Team Rabobank, but the race commissaries decided to give all finishers the same time, preserving the hometown favorites' overall lead. Things changed in 2008 when the yellow jersey was on the back of CSC's Fabian Cancellara. After 3 lightning-fast laps, Cancellara's teammate JJ Hayedo stormed to his second Santa Rosa stage win. It was all CSC, and the leader's jersey remained on Cancellara. If the weather permitted, we would be showing you some of the most beautiful countryside California has to offer. They're making their way through the wine country. It started in Davis earlier today, headed towards Santa Rosa through Napa and Sonoma Valley. Still at the finish line, waiting for images here in stage number 1. Guys, it has been a tough day for not only the riders, but for us. We don't have any pictures, but we've been cobbling together the results as best we can. But some of the riding that did take place earlier today here in Santa Rosa was the first ever women's criterium. It was or not the first ever, but it was the first race of the NRC women's calendar of the year, Phil, and they raced through the elements just like you would expect.
Well, I take my hats off to the women today. The weather could not have been more unfriendly. They turned out. There was an awful big field and a very good field, a quality field here as they moved away. It was a 1-hour race on the finishing circuit to be used by the riders, slightly shortened version of it, and it proved to be a very, very aggressive affair. The likes of the top rider of last year, Ina Teutenberg, who rides for Team Columbia, which is a German rider, she was in the field as well. And you can see by the roads, the rain was really battering down here, and the women turning on the style.
Well, it's not surprising that in weather conditions like this, the race went off almost immediately from the gun, and it was a very rapid start to the race with speeds approaching almost 30 miles an hour. And the reason for that was everybody wanted to get to the front to take it safely around the corners.
At the front of the group there, Amelia Farlin, the champion of Sweden, heading them up, and alongside her is Brooke Miller, the double champion of the United States, and indeed the winner of this race last year. Very, very good riding by the girls on what is treacherously slippery road surfaces. There were no falls at all, to the best of my knowledge, as we watched this race about an hour ago. Everybody concentrating. A good attacking race here as well. It was only about 5 laps in as the field began to fragment and the pressure stayed on. The riders continued to really string out at the back And the crowd did stay around to watch this.
I think the crowd came out from the coffee shops to have a good glimpse at the women's road race around the heart of Santa Rosa here. And then once this race was over, they went straight back into the coffee shops to wait for the arrival of the Amgen Tour of California in a couple of hours' time.
After 4 laps, as you guys had mentioned, the pace was on, and we would see that breakaway of about 13 riders. It would be the heavy hitters who would stay in front, and Phil build that break almost to 45 seconds at one point.
Well, there were some big names, and what's more important in any professional cycle race, and these are professional women cyclists, if you get your teammate represented in the breakaway, then you shut it down at the back. And these 13 leaders represented virtually all the teams in the race. And in this group was Brooke Miller, Kim Anderson, Kathy Mattis, Kelly Benjamin, Rachel Lloyd. As it came up towards the finish, the woman who finished third in... Oh, that's 1 lap to go as they go out onto the final circuit here. It's the only time they slowed down because the main field were now 45 seconds back. So they weren't going to pull them back on this short final lap. And by the time the girls lined up for the finish, it was going to be a big sprint. There is some idea of the gap as they went out with 1 to go.
Well, Team Columbia High Road were in a bit of a quandary because they had their woman Ina Teutenberg in the main field, and she is probably the fastest finisher in the world. So for a while they were chasing, but they were represented in the lead group by 2 riders. So I think when it came down to the final lap, they decided to turn it all off and leave it up to the 2 ladies they had in the leading group of 13 riders.
Well, if you're looking for the star of the future, then just take a look at this, because this woman was third last year. She's only 20 years of age. She is the champion of Sweden, and Amelia Farling, who rides for Team Columbia High Road, made it look pretty easy here, getting the best of Lauren Tomeo, whose husband, by the way, is the team manager of one of the professional teams in the race today. And third across the line there on the left here was Rachel Lloyd. And so there's the result of the first women's race in the national racing calendar. And at 20 years of age, Paul, I think Farling is one of the best youngsters we've seen for years.
Yeah, she was a great junior rider, and now I think that she's moved into the senior ranks. She's moved into probably the best team that you could be in for a top woman cyclist, because Team Columbia High Road was the most successful team of any circuit last year, whether it was the men's racing or the women's racing.
Yeah.
So they've gotten to see a podium already. Gang, of course, that was for the women, but they really await the Amgen Tour of California results for stage number 1. The crowd, they are doing a great job bearing with the elements. Well, when we come back, we'll continue to bring you updated on all the conditions and all the happenings here in stage number 1. They're making their way from Davis, California to Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa, the county seat of Sonoma County. We welcome you back to Versus. The crowd continuing to wait on the riders as we continue to wait on pictures. It's been a rough stage for those out in the elements, and a little bit rough for us as well, because unfortunately we can't show you exactly what's going on out on the road. We know at the moment that it's Francisco Mancebo of Rock Racing who is in the lead, but other than that, there's a huge group chasing him, and in that group is Levi Leipheimer, the defending Amgen Tour of California champion, as well as 7-time Tour de France champion Lance Armstrong. Well, the Amgen Tour of California would not happen without the great support of Amgen. And yesterday, Bob Roll caught up with George Morrow, Amgen's Executive Vice President of Global Commercial Operations, about their mission.
Well, first of all, Amgen's in this for patients. Our mission is to serve patients, and so the Breakaway for Cancer is a tremendous platform for us to launch this initiative. And during the week, the partners for Breakaway with us will actually be going with the tour from stop to stop, and they'll be raising awareness about cancer, survivorship, diagnosis, and all the terrific services that they provide for patients. And so they're also raising awareness about the need for some funds. So by the way, there's breakawayforcancer.com if anybody would like to learn more about these services or make a donation. So that's first and foremost, but also we're here to have fun. I mean, these are the best cyclists in the world, and this is an elite race at this point. So we're going to have some fun, watch these guys duke it out on the course.
Well put, Phil, by George Morrow there, Amgen's Executive Vice President, stating just exactly what the mission is of the company. But it also, as we've already talked about yesterday, guys, it really dovetails well into someone like Lance Armstrong's mission, who also has made cancer his top priority on his return.
That's right, Lance Armstrong's foundation joining with the cancer aims of Amgen here and their employees, and it's sending the right message to the right people, I think. Well, we're looking now at the barriers here as they're lined up. Everybody in anticipation, perhaps of a sprint finish, because if everything runs to form, they might get picked up. Mancebo started the day, by the way, 4 minutes 45 seconds off the yellow jersey. He's recovered all of that and more just now. But if it does come back together again, then we should expect to see the sprinters have a great day.
And speaking of those sprinters, Phil, one who we continue to talk about and expect to be right at the front is Mark Cavendish. Bob Roll caught up with him earlier.
You had a great prologue yesterday, Mark. You must have some pretty good form coming into a stage that suits you well.
Yeah, I was happy yesterday, and but it wasn't my big objective today. It's an objective for me, and providing, you know, the wind's not going to play so much of a factor. It could be a bunch sprint, and I'd like that to be happen. So
the team seems to have gotten the lead outs absolutely perfect so far this season, and your form is good. Should bode well for today's finish.
You know, we got great confidence in each other, and the guys got great confidence in me. And yeah, so it's a winning recipe, and everybody's just giving everything to get first to the line, and it's perfect. So
a bit like Isle of Man weather today in California.
A little bit, yeah. You know, you come here to sunny California, and it's just like being at home. So.
All right, well, best of luck, Mark. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
Hey, Phil, Mark used a great word there, confidence. How much does that uplift and give your team wings when you know you're performing well?
Mark, that's his trait. He is a very, very confident young man. He's very mature in his approach to the sport. He knows he has the ability, but he actually believes in himself to accomplish what he aims at. And so if it does come to a bunch sprint, he's a very difficult man to beat. The only other guy I've ever seen with that same mentality is the Australian sprinter, Robbie McEwen.
I think you get a lot of confidence as well when you look at the team that surrounds Mark Cavendish charging into town. George Hincapie, look at that experience. He has ridden alongside 8 Tour de France winners throughout his career, so he knows what it's like to have a strong leader. Adam Hansen of Australia, Michael Barry, Kim Kirken, the time trial champion of Luxembourg, Mark Renshaw and Michael Rogers. You get behind those guys and you've got a massive big train in front of you.
We can only hope that the sprinters do come together. That would be the most exciting finish we could see here in Santa Rosa. They will finish 3 times around the city. 5-kilometer circuits, 3.1 miles, but that is a long way away. We continue to wait here in Santa Rosa. As we have said, the weather not cooperating at the moment, but the crowd, they continue to grow. A lot of people still here waiting along this finishing circuit, and guys, I just read on one of the websites that they have now extended the rule in terms of crashes. It will go at the second they enter the circuits in Santa Rosa. So if anyone crashes during that time, it will be same time at the end of the day.
I reckon that's the most sensible thing to do, because of course they're very much reminiscent of a couple of years ago when we had Levi Leipheimer crash in the yellow jersey. Technically, he should have lost the lead that day, and probably the time which would have eventually led to winning the race. Rightly so, they amended the regulation because of the nature of the crash. The whole field almost fell down, and so that's a wise decision today, taking no chances as they approach.
Levi Leipheimer, the 2-time defending champion of the Amgen Tour California. Before he won the race, Floyd Landis won the race, and Floyd took some time out this morning to visit with Bob Roll.
Floyd Landis, very warm reception from the crowd yesterday. First day back, sensations back in the leg. How did you feel in the prologue time trial yesterday?
I felt well. The crowd was wonderful. It was a little distracting. In fact, I'm not used to this racing thing anymore, and I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was touched my heart.
You had a crash on the hip a few days ago, and how did it affect you in the prologue?
It's hard to say. I don't think it made too much difference. It was a little stiff, but once I get going and warm up, it feels okay. So I think today will be fine. I think everybody would prefer sunshine, but it's going to be a hard race, and that's what we need.
89th in the prologue, is that something that you expected, or did you hope to go a little bit quicker than that?
I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping to go a little faster than that. I'm not typically best at prologue. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. So I'm not certainly not going to change my focus of the race, but yeah, I was hoping to go a little faster than that.
All right, well, good luck today, Floyd.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Phil, you mentioned that earlier. Of course, Landis would be disappointed, but however, his stages where he can excel come later in the race.
Yeah, and I think he's approaching this with the right mental approach to this race this year. He's coming back. He doesn't call it a comeback, by the way, because he feels he was incorrectly disqualified from the Tour de France for allegedly taking drugs, and he's fought that as far as he can. He's had to give up, and he's spent just about every penny he's got in his appeals. So now he's just coming back and doing what he loves doing, which is riding a bike. And we'll see how he goes. He's in this chasing group, so he's read the move today, and whether that move stays away, we don't know yet.
A great group of riders are chasing the leaders. It's been Francisco Mancebo from Rock Racing out in front for almost the whole day. He broke away at about the 5-mile mark in stage number 1. Can he stay away? It would be one of the best rides ever at the Amgen Tour California if he can. The craziness continues here in Santa Rosa. We've been trying to bring you pictures of stage number 1 from Davis to Santa Rosa, but the weather has not been cooperating. Well, here in Santa Rosa, guys, though, the crowd, nothing's dampened their spirits, Phil.
No,
I mean, you know, a car comes by and they start cheering. They just want something to see and something to cheer for.
Well, I almost commentated on the sprint finish there for that car, just to get some rehearsal going, Craig, because what else have we got to do at the moment except try and explain to you what we can't see out on the mountains at the moment. So it is a shame, and this is a particularly spectacular route, as we've been told by the Californian people all day. If this rain hadn't been here, we'd have seen a real beautiful side of this state. The route taking the riders through from Yolo County, they're racing from Davis into the Napa County, and everybody knows about the Napa Valley, I guess, and then into Sonoma County before winding up to the finish in Santa Rosa. A very pretty day normally. And the one I have to say that Santa Rosa is very proud of down here, and they really do love this race. But today they're going to see a split field coming in, because I can't see everybody getting in together today.
Well, just a little bit of information coming in. In fact, Cancellara was extremely sick during the night, Phil. And finally,
whoa,
I think
look
we've got
at
ourselves a
that.
bike.
Eureka,
folks.
And not Eureka, California.
No, that's a cyclist, and who else is it but, of course, the leader, the hero of the day for sure, Francesco Mancebo. He's going to be a big candidate for the most courageous rider of the day, that's for sure. Breaking away almost from the gun today, was joined by 2 riders, Tim Johnson and David Kemp. He's got rid of them back to the chase group. He is still in the lead. We're around about, we think he's around about 5 minutes ahead.
5 minutes is a tall order, but a man who's been away since very early on in the race, he will now starting to feel a little bit of fatigue. And what's very important, Craig, on a day like this is you've got to make sure that you keep yourself topped up with energy. And it's always very difficult when it's cold like this. You tend to think more about the cold than actually making sure that you keep eating every 15 to 20 minutes. And of course, on a day like this, because it's cold out there on the road, you end up using an awful lot more energy. So it's much more important to keep eating.
Second King of the Mountain results from Howell Mountain Road, Phil. Francisco Mancebo, of course, was out in front. Tim Johnson and David Kemp at that point were right behind him. However, they have been absorbed by the peloton, but those points will go to those 3 men. It was a 3-man duel for a while, at least, with Johnson and Kemp trying to keep up with Mancebo. Mancebo has been off for quite a long time, and there, when they got to Calistoga, California, at the sprint number 2 results, it would be Mancebo again. This time, David Kemp would move in front of Timothy Johnson. But to touch on, Paul, what you had said earlier, not just with the fuel, is it, but something that a lot of people don't consider when it's raining out is the dehydration factor, because you really do need to keep taking in liquids also, don't you?
You certainly do. It's very important, and that's what I would hope the team manager for Rock Racing here would be saying to his man. Make sure you keep yourself topped up with energy, because it's very, very easy on a day like this to hit the wall. Although Francisco Mancebo is an extremely experienced professional bike rider, he shouldn't go through anything like that. But I do admit the driver from the Rock Racing Car team there was not very nice to our cameraman when he went through that puddle.
I do want to point out, too, seeing as how we are in California, and this is the best stage race that America has to offer. How about Rock Racing, Phil, in their style with the big Cadillacs?
You've got to love them. They're a very colourful team, and that's always necessary in any sport, I think. Michael Ball is the man behind it, and he'd be pretty excited by Mancebo's performance today.
Thankfully, we finally had some pictures to show you, albeit a bit of a breakup at the end. Francisco Mancebo from Rock Racing is out in front. We just showed you proof of that. Hopefully those pictures will continue when we return. It certainly has livened up our spirits. Please stay with us. We've got more to come. There he is, your leader of stage number 1 in the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. Francisco Mancebo from Rock Racing has led pretty much the whole day out in these miserable conditions. It has not been a great day at the office for any of these riders, has it, guys? And especially Mancebo. He is doing the tough miles at the moment, but Phil, he's shown a great job and some great resilience out in front.
Well, he's shown terrific form for a rider from Spain to be riding this well this early on now in these sort of conditions. Not very pleasant at all. 3 hours 52 as they're coming through now. That's how long they've been in the saddle. And they've still got that chasing group. Again, I'll give you, if you're just joining our coverage, we're having real problems with the pictures today as the riders come away from the area known as the Petrified Forest and head towards the final county today of Sonoma, heading into the finish Santa Rosa. The main names in this breakaway seem to be Levi Leipheimer, Lance Armstrong, Chris Horner, Andy Schleck and Jens Voigt, Thomas Lofquist and Michael Rogers, Dave Zabriskie, Robert Gessink, Vincenzo Nibali, Floyd Landis, Rory Sutherland, the Australian, and Oscar Sevilla. And this is the chase group I think we're looking at the moment now. We guess there is possibly 23 riders in this group. But the field itself has split up here, and all over the mountain there's a lot of groups around now.
This is a serious splitting up of the main field here this afternoon. It'd be nice to look at the front end of the main field to see who is doing the work, because really there are a number of the big teams represented in this leading group.
Yeah.
Mancebo's lead now apparently down to just 4 minutes, and that's just coming into my favorite little recipe of 1 minute for every 10 kilometers of racing left towards the finish line. That's normally what the professionals will judge that they can pull back easily inside the last 40 kilometers of racing.
I'm glad you corrected that, Paul. I don't think these boys would want to stay out there any longer than possible today because they are feeling very cold, very miserable. Just to report some earlier news that overnight Lance Armstrong's time trial bike was apparently stolen from the team truck in Sacramento, and since then, on during the day today, he's had a flat tire and a fall. So he's getting his comeback all in one day. Now, as you go down the descent here, you can see the tyre tracks going through the rain. You've got to be very, very careful on the way down. It's now glacial down here.
Well, one of the most important things to do on a day like this, and they're very fortunate that it was actually bad weather conditions at the start of the day, because although in professional cycling they don't change the compound on the treads of the tyres, they do change the tyre pressures, which is extremely important. When it's nice and dry, they'll pump their pressures up to 110 pounds per square inch. On a day like this, when it starts to get very wet and nasty, to try and keep the adherence, they keep the tyre pressures as low as 70 psi.
In terms of Mancebo, Phil, being out in front versus the chase group, does he have an advantage as he goes down at these speeds because he has more of the road to work with?
I think he does personally, because there's no wheel spray going over the faces, which all the riders who are following are feeling quite uncomfortable now, and they're desperate to see the correct line of descent. The worst thing you can do going down a mountain is try to follow the guy in front, because there's a different level of courage, a different level of approach. You've got to ride the descent for yourself and not follow somebody else. I remember the days you tried to follow poor Sherwen, and the chances are you'd fall off.
Well, Phil, the problem with my descending was I wasn't very good at going uphill, so I had to go down the hills a little bit faster than anybody else to try and catch up.
A fearsome sight.
Make
indeed.
up for it. Mancebo trying to make up as much ground as he can at the moment. Coming off of that descent, heading into Santa Rosa. Once he gets into town, he'll have 15 kilometers or just under 10 miles to go with those 3 finishing circuits, Phil.
So we're coming off and away from the petrified forest now. As we drop down, there's flatter roads, but as Paul Sherwen's alluded to, the local club cyclists have told us the running is not easy. Now we're looking at about 25 kilometres to ride, somewhere in the region of 15-16 miles to go into the finish. So with a bit of luck now, we're going to hold these pictures all the way in, and we are seeing a terrific pursuit. And I take my hat off to Mancebo at the moment, because if he is to reach the finish, remember that we have 3 circuits in town for us, so we're only about 10 miles out from the finishing line right now.
Mancebo making his way into Santa Rosa. It's been a long time coming. They've been out on the road for almost 4 hours, and these are the best conditions they have seen all day. Finally, we have pictures in the Rock Racing car cheering their man on. Welcome back to our coverage of the 2009 Amgen Tour of California here on Versus. It's been a tough stage 1 for the riders, but no one has done better at the moment than Francesco Mancebo from Rock Racing. He has been out in front for almost the whole day. He broke away at around the 5-mile mark of this stage that goes 107 miles long. At one point, there was a group of about 20 riders that started to close the gap on him. That group included Levi Leipheimer, Lance Armstrong, Chris Horner from Astana, as well as Andy Schleck, Jens Voigt from Saxo Bank. Dave Zabriskie was in that group as well, as was Ivan Basso. However, the whole peloton has come back together. We're being told at this point they're about 4.5 minutes behind Mancebo. Mancebo will have to finish in Santa Rosa with 3 finishing circuits of around 3 miles each. And as he comes into town, the real news, however, out on the road is that earlier today, early in stage 1, the yellow jersey wearer, Fabian Cancellara, had to abandon the race, leaving the yellow jersey to go to Levi Leipheimer if he can stay in it. So with Cancellara out, guys, and Mancebo with this big group, we could see a drastic change in the standings. But Paul, as you've mentioned time and time again, the amount of time needed to close that gap when the peloton is together, just based on physics, they can do it.
They can still do it, because this man is probably riding at around about 40 to 45 kilometers an hour. And if the big teams of the sprinters make a concerted effort over the last 25 kilometers and push the pace up to 55 kilometers an hour, well, in the last hour of racing, they can wipe away a 10-kilometer advantage. But it all depends on how they are psychologically in that group behind, whether they feel that they can still pull him back, and whether a number of teams are prepared to work together to give the sprinters a chance of victory.
Phil, you have to think that all the sprinter teams at some point are going to work together, especially as we're just being told news, correct, that it's now down to about 3 minutes, the gap.
It's down to about 3 minutes, and that picture we saw very briefly there, I'm not sure whether that was the complete field. It didn't look to be a lot of riders to me, but we're not sure anymore where the cameras are because of the conditions. Anyway, this man, these are good approaches to the town of Santa Rosa, because these roads are changing direction all of the time. There is the chase group, and there's no way that's the peloton. That is still that's still about 20 riders.
Correct, yeah, about that. So that could still be that group, Phil, that we were talking about with Lance Armstrong and Levi Leipheimer.
It looks as though they're staying away. Now, this is throwing a very interesting aspect on the tour. Yeah, the favourites have read it right, but will they bring back Mancebo at this stage? They're saying 3 minutes is the gap. It looks to be the same 22 riders that picked up Tim Johnson and David Kemp, who originally were with Mancebo, who appears now, Paul, to have made the right decision to push on by himself.
Well, he was obviously the strongest rider on the climb. He was a great mountain goat in the years when he finished high up in the overall standings of the Tour de France. So I don't think Howell Mountain would have been too much of a scary proposition for him. But what is scary now is trying to survive off the front end of the main field. He's made a pretty good operation out on the road, because he's won himself 6 seconds in time bonuses. So he will have pulled himself up from 40th place overall at the start of the day, inside of the top 15 if he gets caught right now. But if he doesn't get caught, he only needs a couple of seconds advantage over the front end of the main field to be the brand new leader of this bike race at the end of tonight.
Not to mention, Phil, with those time bonuses available at the end of this stage, 10 seconds to the winner, he could absolutely pad his lead.
Well, if he's got to win still by about 3.5 minutes to take the race lead, because he's lost 4:45 on yesterday's time. Oh, he's lost 13 seconds yesterday, hasn't he? So he's got to win by about half a minute. Now look at this now, because there's a lot of blue shorts there. That looks like Lance Armstrong's in amongst it, and this is the Astana group, who are now driving on at the front, which is to be expected. They want to narrow this gap down, and they want to try and get this man back in the gun sights. And it's an emotional time for Astana, because they're trying to carry Levi Leipheimer into his hometown and present him with a yellow jersey.
Big advantage as well is if that group of 23 riders survives off the front end of the main field. Tom Bonan is not there, Mark Cavendish is not there, so the sprinters don't have the chance to get themselves at all the time bonuses. So therefore Levi Leipheimer would ride into Santa Rosa, and he would be the man who gets the new lead.
We look at the results, guys, of the final King of the Mountain here in this stage. Mancebo, of course, was well away, but there is Astana, 2, 3, and 4. And we talk a lot, don't we, Phil, in your coverages throughout the world. Strength in numbers in these breakaways, and Astana certainly has it here.
And so is Lance Armstrong. Let's face it, the man on his comeback mission is in the group and riding. So clearly Lance is on the way back. And Lance himself says Leipheimer is our man for this tour. He's got the strength, and Leipheimer himself has been the stronger man in the group in all of the training sessions they've had leading up to this race, and they are riding. And we've just seen pictures there again of Armstrong driving at the front. And so it looks to me as though they've got to close this gap down. It's down, as far as we know, to exactly 3 minutes now, so they are closing in.
Mancebo still out in front, pushing the pedals as best he can. An arduous day against the elements for the Spaniard, but he has shown true grit and shown fortitude. Can he stay out in front? We're all going to find out. Back live on Versus, stage number 1 of the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. At the moment, our pictures tell the story. It is all Astana driving the peloton, trying to bring their man, Levi Leipheimer, back. The two-time defending champion of this race, made no bones about it. He wanted to win here in 2009 and make it a three-peat. But for Francesco Mancebo, he has been out in front all day long. He comes into the circuits, it looks like, here in Santa Rosa. He'll have roughly 10 miles to go to the finish. And with 10 miles to go to the finish, guys, as soon as Mancebo hits those circuits, he will start to go around town. And Phil, you mentioned before, it will become difficult for him on these roads with this slick surface to keep the pace up of the guys chasing him. And there we see it, Astana still at the front.
But 3 minutes, you know, Craig, it might be enough here. We'll get the exact time gap when he gets under that finishing banner. Then he faces up to his 3 circuits, which is 15 kilometers or 9 miles. And the field here, it's all Astana on the front. It's down to them. The other riders know that they want to get Leipheimer home first in the yellow in his hometown of Santa Rosa. So why should they help? Sit and watch, enjoy the stall seats.
Well, one of the team is actually working with Team Astana, and that's Team High Road Columbia. And you can see that on the front now, in fact, it is one of those riders who's got himself into that leading group who's working with Team Astana. The other riders in this group are all passengers at the moment. It is very difficult to actually chase down a 3-minute gap when you come to a city circuit finish like this, because of the fact that they're going around corners all the time. It breaks up the organization of the chase, and that may well go to the advantage of Francesco Mancebo.
We're being told that what looks like the yellow jersey there in 3rd position is actually Lance Armstrong wearing some yellow Livestrong gear. So Armstrong well placed right up in front. Phil, you've already mentioned the fact that Astana had 4 riders in this breakaway. Tactically brilliant on their part to be attentive as they were.
Levi Leipheimer, Lance Armstrong, Chris Horner, and Jose, or Chechu as we call him, Jose Luis Rubiera. They're the riders in this breakaway for them. They've got 2 riders in here for Quick Step, and that's Jürgen van der Volle and Kevin Seeldryers, who I've noticed sat at the back of this group all of the time, and they pack a good sprint finish. They might be just thinking it could be their day.
You might also notice, if we get down there to see Lance Armstrong, he's actually wearing a mountain bike style helmet here this afternoon with a visor on the front. Now, very often bike riders who race on the road, they're a little bit too snobbish to wear something like that. They think it's not quite so cool. But Armstrong, I think, has got enough of a reputation.
Being snobbish,
I think isn't that the way Phil goes through life? Image is everything.
Image is everything where Phil's concerned. But Lance, he's got a whole reputation behind him. He's won the Tour de France 7 times. He doesn't care if he's going to wear a mountain bike helmet. He'll even wear black socks.
Well, this is, of course, a critical point in the race right now, guys. And as you've just highlighted that, they possibly can't make this 3-minute gap up. So let's extrapolate a little bit. that we've seen the Amgen Tour of California come down to seconds in the past few years. If Mancebo, only being 13 seconds back, Paul, at this point, is able to keep a whopping 3-minute gap, I mean, that set Rock Racing up perfectly for the rest of this tour, doesn't it?
No, it actually sets Rock Racing up to be under an awful lot of pressure for the rest of this tour, because they've got one man. If he conserves a massive part of his overall lead here at the finish line, you will see a massive attacking race all the way down to the individual time trial in Solvang. Let's not forget that we're looking here today at what is probably the easiest stage of the Amgen Tour of California, and look at the damage it's done.
Well, a point you made there, Craig, Leipheimer won this race last year from David Miller, the British rider, by 49 seconds overall after a week of racing. In 07, Leipheimer won from Jens Voigt by 21 seconds. And in 2006, Floyd Landis won from Dave Zabriskie by 29 seconds. So the race has always been decided by seconds. And today, we're seeing probably the most damaging stage to the riders in this race that we've probably ever seen.
This is one for the ages, not just physically, but mentally as well. We have seen the anguish on the face of Francisco Mancebo. We finally have those pictures to bring you, and you can see in the finishing circuits here in Santa Rosa, he is under 10 miles to go, and the weather, Paul, is just not letting up.
It is not going to let up at all. It's absolutely atrocious, but this is a great kind of weather conditions for a man who goes out on a brave move like this. He's going to face 3 laps of this circuit here around Santa Rosa. When the main field or the main chasing group comes up to that finishing line, and here they are. I've got a clock on this to see exactly what the time checks are. We've had sporadic time checks throughout the whole of the afternoon. At one stage it was up to 12 minutes. It came down to 7 minutes, came down to 4 minutes. I tell you one thing, this is not going to be a 3-minute gap. That was Chris Horner on the front end of the main field. I've got the clock running here at 1 minute when they come up to the finish line. So the time checks we've been getting, gentlemen, have not been so good.
No, they haven't, have they? Because they go through there at just over a minute on the clock. It could have been a minute exactly there as they raced under. So they're going to catch him, and then he's going to have to hang on to this group, and he'll still sit high up tonight. But if they do catch him, of course, it's going to probably go the way of Levi Leipheimer for the Maillot Jaune for tomorrow, and that will be a fairly tale for him. Everybody now is chasing wheels here. The yellow jersey there worn by Michael Rogers. They're saying the official gap is 1 minute and 10 seconds. There it is. As we look down now, a little bit of panic setting in, but they know they've only got 3 circuits now, Santa Rosa, to bring him back.
Well, I hate to be the prophet of doom, but 1 minute and 10 seconds with 16 kilometers to go is probably not enough.
Mancebo has had his chance all day long. He has maximized his effort. Now he can only give it the last gasp of energy to try to keep this charging chase group away. The chase group includes Lance Armstrong, Levi Leipheimer, Chris Horner, and Jose Chechu Rubiera from Astana. Welcome back to Versus. Floyd Landis on his new team, Ouch, presented by Maxxis, making his way into the finishing circuits. It looks as though he's leading the main peloton. That is the group of riders that is behind, we believe, the chase group of roughly 20. Floyd Landis making a gap here. Floyd, no stranger to conditions like this. This is the group now with Floyd being sort of in the 3rd chase group singularly. This would now be your 4th chase group behind Francisco Mancebo. Looked as though George Hincapie from Columbia High Road was just in that group as well. Miserable conditions out on the road at the moment. Mancebo, guys, in the midst of his 2nd of 3 circuits. Floyd Landis, it seems, has tried, Phil, to break away from the back peloton.
No, he read it right. He was in the front group. He was part of the Lance Armstrong group, but he's now found the pressure too much and he's been dropped off the back. But at least he's had a go to get into the right position. So his form not quite there. I think we saw that in what we call the race of truth yesterday, when it's all down to your efforts in the time trial. But it shows his head's in the right place, Paul. He read that move perfectly. He's probably a couple of weeks away from the form that would have kept him there.
Well, I think the fact that some of the other guys in the breakaway have already got a few kilometers of good racing under their legs, especially in the Tour Down Under. The breakaway group off the front end of the main field was at one stage 23 riders, and I'm getting information now that that group is down to around about 17 riders.
I would agree.
Floyd Landis, who was originally in the group of 21, and there they are, that's not 21 riders anymore. Floyd Landis, maybe in his first race coming back into the top level of competition, didn't have the top end to stay in with the group, because chasing down Francisco Mancebo as they were, there would have been a lot of pressure on the men to stay in that group.
No secret that for a lot of these guys, this season is a work in progress. And Phil, as you've mentioned, that's one of the surprising things to see Mancebo, who makes his home in Spain, racing so well early on in this year.
Yes, indeed. And Mancebo's now completing his first lap. Last time at that point, he was 1:10 ahead. I think it'd be less, but let's hope not too much less, because one more circuit and he could be in clover.
Well, that's the important thing for him, and there you can see this is the front end of the main field, and the main field an awful long way behind it. Looked like somebody was going the wrong way down the road there.
Now, this is the remnants of the group. I counted 16 very briefly there. And Floyd Landis has been unhitched from that group. There was a big flurry of attacking riding.
Actually, Phil, this is the
main peloton coming in now.
Yeah.
So they are quite a long way behind, Paul. They're 3 or 4 miles behind.
They're certainly,
if they're on their first lap.
They are certainly a long way behind on the first day of the Amgen Tour of California. You can see everybody wrapped up here this afternoon, very much against the elements on what has been a very nasty day. We still haven't got an exact time on Francisco Mancebo to the group containing Armstrong, Leipheimer, Mick Rogers, and a whole host of other favourites. I started my clock, but we missed them coming through the line. But I would have to say it's not too far away from being around about the 1 minute mark.
We come up on a minute right there. Mancebo still very much in control of this stage number 1 from Davis to Santa Rosa. The crowds have braved the weather, gone up against the elements all day long. And here is that chase group. Once again, Chris Horner on the front, Oscar Sevilla there as well for Rock Racing. Ivan Basso in there as well, Phil.
Yes, Basso's there. Nibali is the man that's riding a bit further up the line than Basso. Lance Armstrong has dropped to the back at the moment, and it looks like they're getting ready for a final showdown here. So they pulled away a little bit, I think, here as they come under the banner. If we could just see what that gantry said, I'll be able to tell you the time. Paul, what was it?
1:40.
Well, they've got that. Well, if that's to be correct, and I think it can't be anything else but correct, they've pulled out, Mancebo has pulled out 30 seconds on the finishing circuit, and no one would have expected that.
Well, not at all, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what is going on in here, because originally there were 2 riders from Team Liquigas in this group. Now that's down to one rider from Team Liquigas. A little while back, a little while ago from the helicopter, I did see a lone rider from Liquigas off the front of that group. It's always confusing on a day like this with the weather conditions to try and figure out just where everybody is, but it's quite possible that one of the riders from Liquigas has nipped off the front, and that would be Vincenzo Nibali.
Well, time will tell, as we say. They've got 2 laps to go of the main field now, as they've gone under that banner again. But that is great news for Mancebo. If he comes round again with a minute in hand, they won't bring him back on that last circuit, and that will be a most deserved victory, and I would rate it as one of the best victories he's ever had.
Oh, almost certainly, and a very courageous victory as well. I would have to have a look across the gap here. I'm looking for a rider in a lime green jersey, just to see whether or not somebody has managed to pop off the front from Team Liquigas. And there's a motorbike going round the corner there, just scanning up towards where Francisco Mancebo is. A little while back, it looked as if there may well have been somebody who'd slipped across the front end of this main field.
Well, if he did, he's flown away from the pack. I'm amazed at your powers, Paul, how you can instruct the helicopter to do this. Now, that's looking like the leader, isn't it? No, it's not the leader. That is not the leader. That is, it looks like a quick step. If that's a quick step rider, I would suggest it's Jurgen van der Volle. But he could be lapped. This is the problem now. There are riders on the circuit who are officially 1 lap behind the leaders on the course. So the judges are going to take control of this race before the finish, but we'll certainly know by the end of today who the winner is and whether he's got yellow or not. What do you think, Paul? That rider lapped? There were 2 quick-step riders in that chase group, Kevin Steeldrives and Jurgen van der Volle. They were both wearing racing capes when I saw them.
Well, we'll try and figure it out as the race unfolds. It's been a rather difficult day for all of the technical advantages we normally have in a race like the Amgen Tour of California. This is the main field, and they will be losing huge chunks of time. Whatever happens, we do know that Francisco Mancebo is the leader on the open road.
whatever he is.
If it's Jurgen van der Walle, he's a very tough bike rider, and he's a man who knows exactly how to ride off the front end of a group. The way that group lost from a minute to a minute and 40 seconds, I would suggest that maybe somebody did come out of that leading group of riders. That's the group with Lance Armstrong, the yellow
But they
cape
stopped
there.
racing. They appear to me to have actually stopped racing here.
I think they're probably happy with the situation. They've brought it down from 12 minutes to 7 to 4 to around about the 1 minute mark.
They're going back to 2 here.
Maybe tactically they're going to let Rock Racing win the stage here this afternoon to put pressure on that team for the rest of the week, because they probably feel they have the strength in their team to blow away a single man when they want to.
Well, there's also the other point you raised there, Paul, and that is that they might have felt on Astana that they were doing all the chasing, the other guys were doing all the following. Why should they do it? And they've said to the others, guys, you want to catch him, give us a hand, and nobody has, and this is the result. They've backed off.
Well, the leading group there contains a lot of heads of state of the major professional cycling teams. There's Tom Boonen, and he's in the main field. You can see the main field. You can easily identify them because they're completely and utterly wrapped up against the element, and they're just hoping for this race to get over and done with today and get themselves into an early warm shower.
Well, they've done one lap of the circuit now. The other boys are coming round. They will start their final lap.
Well, our helicopter maybe didn't go quite far enough up the road, Phil, because I have a feeling that Vincenzo Nibali, the man that I was mentioning, has gone off the front, and he's being now indicated at 20 seconds off Francesco Mancebo. The rider from Quick-Step, it very well could be Jurgen van der Walle, is at 40 seconds, and then the rest of the group at 1 minute and 40 seconds, with the main field trailing at over 5 minutes.
And that's broken the spirit of Astana in the chase back here. It still could mean, though, that Leipheimer won't be far off yellow tonight, but if Mancebo can keep this advantage to the line, he will get the yellow jersey today in Santa Rosa.
Well, if it's Vincenzo Nibali, Phil, in second position on the road at 20 seconds, I have to say I'm going to tip that man to catch Mancebo, go past him and win the stage, because he is a great talent for the future, Vincenzo Nibali, and that's why you're not seeing any work being done at the front end of this race by any of the other teams. They now know that they're putting Team Astana under pressure. Astana know that this race doesn't finish till next Sunday, so they don't want to use all of their ammunition on the first day on the open road.
Well, Nibali's only 24 years of age, but he's been a pro now since the year Lance Armstrong retired, really, 2005. He is a big talent, quite rightly so. And last year won 2 very big races, the Tour of Trentino. The Tour of Trentino is a pretty big stage race in Italy. He won that, and he won a stage en route to it. He's had some good wins. This would go down as one of his best if he gets up to Mancebo. We seem to have lost them all at the moment. We're finding him now, though. This is Francesco Mancebo as he bounces up these little rises around Santa Rosa.
Well, he's probably looking over his shoulder, and very shortly he may well just get a sign. And there he is, Vincenzo Nibali. Yep. Just to remind you a bit about Vincenzo Nibali. Last year in the Tour de France, you might remember he finished 19th overall, and he was I think the wearer of the white jersey competition for 5 days.
Big battle at the time. I didn't come up in the end with him, but he might get across. This is going to be a real pursuit. Now there he goes. He's crossed from the leaders. He's closed. Look at his face. He looks like he's just licking his lips here. It's rather sad for Francesco Mancebo, who will not be able to have the strength to hold this rider. I doubt they'll finish together. Nibali here is really feeling on top of himself as he comes up behind Mancebo right in front of a grandstand crowd.
Well, this is a huge crowd, and of course on the front of the chase group here, which is the remnants of a group that was 23 riders, all of the work now is being left up to Team Astana.
Astana has risen to the occasion for most of this stage when they were able to bring that gap down by chunks, but since that time a couple have gone off the front. One of them is, of course, Vincenzo Nibali. Nibali, the man who at the moment is about to pass Francesco Mancebo, Phil, and change the leader of the stage.
And back in charge of the main field here, Armstrong down there in his yellow racing cape, but they've now given up. They've decided, I think, that the 2 riders in front, probably 3 riders in front actually, because that quick-step rider, I think might be a lap, Paul, because there's 2 quick-steps still in this group. I think there's nobody in between after Nibali.
Well, one thing for certain, the other lime green jersey in that group of riders, which is being led by Team Astana, is the lime green jersey of the Liquigas rider Ivan Basso, and it just goes to show that he's read this race right here here this afternoon, and he's very happy with the situation, having his man go off the front end of the main field.
I think the only thing that's becoming apparent today is that the future winner of the Amgen Tour of California next Sunday will be one of the group we're looking at here, or one of the two men out in front, because the rest have lost their ground today. There's been an elimination, and it's brought a field of 136 down to about 17 riders who can now win this race.
It is on a day when we didn't really expect to see so much of a separation in the main field, and possibly even a big bunch sprint here into the streets of Santa Rosa. We see Lance Armstrong reading the race absolutely perfectly, followed there by Chris Horner. The gap, Phil, and amazingly enough, when they first came through was at the 1 minute margin. It's now in excess of 2 minutes to this group.
Well, Nibali can ride a good time trial. Then we've got to be careful here, Paul. They might be allowing this gap to open up a little bit too much. And the words of Lee Quigas when they arrived here, we're just coming to California to do some good training. Nice weather, I suspect.
How many times have we heard that before? Lance Armstrong riding very hard on the front end of the main field. He's sacrificing all of his chances here for Levi Leipheimer, who he really believes has got the form to win this bike race. But let's go a little bit further forward to the man leading the race on the road, Vincenzo Nibali. In 2007, he was second in the National Time Trial Championships of Italy.
He's a good time trial.
And he was 15th in the Olympic Games in Beijing. So they may well be making a little bit of a mistake this afternoon.
They've allowed him to run away, and he crossed that gap so easily, Craig.
Well, he did indeed. And speaking of gaps, let's have both of you weigh in on the fact that the chasing group has set up, as we've seen. They've lost about 1.5 minutes in those laps. But at what point then do they start allowing the further peloton behind them to get too close for comfort? Because as you mentioned, Phil, hey, at the moment they're up by 2 minutes, or I should say behind by 2 minutes on Nibali and Mancebo. But if they let this other main group a little bit closer, is that putting them in danger?
No, I think the peloton behind, because they've thrown the towel in. They're actually riding probably at the same speed as the Armstrong group right now, but certainly no quicker. So they won't get any closer today. But the worry is this group making a fatal mistake and allowing those two riders just a little bit too far to the finishing line? They really don't want to be 2 minutes back on the line.
2 minutes is a little bit too much, I think, to give to a rider like Vincenzo Nibali, and of course still Francesco Mancebo, because Mancebo is still in that leading group of two riders, and they've also left another very good GC man to get off the front end of the group, because I'm getting confirmation that Jurgen van der Walle is off the front of this group for Team Quickstep at around about 45 seconds. However, don't ever go against the judgments of one Johan Bruneel. He's a very clever master tactician. He's still got three very strong riders in Team Astana who have got a chance with winning this race, and we've got a long way to go down to the outskirts of San Diego, and there are many other things can unfold on the way down the coast.
Well, you bring up a great point, Paul, which is tactically not just Bruneel but all the other director sportifs. Are they showing perhaps a lack of respect for Nibali and Mancebo by letting them go this far out in front, especially with Astana, it seems like almost sitting up in this chase group?
Well, maybe so. I think they're making a mistake, because I've just checked the overall situation, Craig, and at the start of the day, Nibali did the same time, only split by tenths of a second, of Mancebo in the prologue yesterday. They both did 4 minutes 45, and they round all the seconds up. They don't count tenths of a second unless there's a tie later. And so, although Mancebo's won a couple of small bonuses along the way, 2-3 second time bonuses, if Nibali wins the big time bonus, it'll be a matter of seconds at the top, probably 7 in the favour of Mancebo if they finish together. But if there's a 7-second gap between the two in favour of Nibali will be in yellow tonight.
It's going to be
it's hard work, this massive attack.
I was going to say, well done.
Little bit of a nightmare for those guys, but the big difficulty, I think Johan Bruneel has obviously said to his guys, look, you've done all of the work, you've pulled this race back together completely and utterly. Don't do all of the pacemaking, although they are still sitting on the front end of the main field. They are doing the majority of the work while we go a little bit further back. In fact, 5.5 minutes further back to the front end of the main field, and look at those weather conditions.
And there's Floyd Landis gone back into the pack there, just passing through our picture. As we now look down the road here through the lights, the pack are through the finishing stage. We're waiting for the arrival now of the stage winner after what has been one of the most dismal days on the Tour of California over its 4 years of being. But I have to say, and sadly we couldn't witness most of it, it has been a terrific day of bike racing, and it has brought out all of the favourites on what is the first open road race stage of the event this year.
Certainly you can see these guys in the main field. Phil. Psychologically, it's a horrendous situation to be in, because the thing about professional bike racing on a day like this is you can see Jurgen van der Walle, Phil, has actually made the junction at the front end of this bike race. So from having one sole leader a little while back, we now are looking at 3 riders on the front end of the main field.
Well, while Paul starts to work out what that does to the overall classification at the finish, let me tell you that Jurgen van der Walle is not a bad sprinter here, and he used to be a teammate of Lance Armstrong's, by the way. He's made the breakaway. A Spaniard, an Italian and a Belgian rider here, and van der Walle has joined them, but we're coming round towards the finish, don't forget, and there is nobody willing to take the lead now, so they put the youngster on the front, and Nibali, to possibly lead them out.
Well, Vincenzo Nibali, Phil, is a man who knows how to finish off bike races. He will be a little bit flummoxed by the fact that all of a sudden Jurgen van der Walle has made an incursion into this leading group of what is now 3 riders. Nibali knows he really needs to get himself the victory here this afternoon, and I think if I look at the ability of Vincenzo Nibali, he's the kind of rider who has got the acceleration to get himself the win.
Well, if Van der Walle gets it, it'll be the first ever win he's had as a professional. He's a very strong bike rider, but he's never won a professional race, and he's joined the leaders again with a typical show of strength, slipping away in the murk of the day and dancing his way up to the 2 leads and catching them at a most crucial part of the race. There's what's left of the chase group. Here come the 3 musketeers now under the underpass, and not very far from the line for them now. I'll go for Van der Walle.
I'll go for Vincenzo Nibali.
I thought you would. And Mancebo's going for himself because he's opening the attack here. Good for him. And has he got the legs? I think he might have. He's gone clear of them all here. The champion of the day. He's won every prize along the way, but has he gone too soon? No. Well, that is about the most well-deserved victory I have seen for years in pro cycling. He has led all of the way. 2 guys reach him, and he still beats them all. Francesco Mancebo is the winner, deservedly so. And he has earned his yellow jersey today.
I've got to say, we both got it wrong there.
Well, I'm glad we did, because that was a ride and a half. I mean, he's won all the prizes today. He'll be the most courageous rider. He's the Maillot Jaune tomorrow. Absolutely fantastic.
Now, don't forget, he was formerly the Spanish national champion and the national road race champion as well. This is the group a long way further back, and I wonder if they've managed to accelerate over the final few kilometres here to make sure they haven't lost as much as 2 minutes, because that's what it was with a lap to go.
Well, they've given away a lot of time here, and Rock Racing, who were in the race last year amongst a very controversial entry with some of the riders banned from taking part, they're all here this year, and there's the answer of Michael Ball's Rock Racing team, a victory on the stage into Santa Rosa. And what an incredible stage it has been. The Battle of the Mountains in atrocious conditions, starting off overnight with Armstrong's bike being stolen, then he crashes, punctures, then the field splits, and then 2 from the chase group reach the leader, and he still beats them.
And he's still leading out the front end of this group, because he's actually doing all of the work on the front end of this group as they come down towards the finish line. He wants to make sure that it's not going to be the 2-minute gap that it was with 2 laps to go. But Francesco Mancebo there, Phil, I have to say that is a phenomenal performance after leading the race for 100 miles. Here's the group. There's Armstrong on the right-hand side. Levi Leipheimer is in that group as well, and they've reduced it a little bit. It's not going to be 2 minutes on the line, but it's not going to be far off.
They're just going to finish all the same time here. Armstrong bringing them up the home straight here, looking around who's going to take him on in the sprint. It's time that counts. They're not the 4th place on the stage. All of these riders cross in the same time as they come under the banner, and it looks as though we had Riviera possibly right there, or Chris Horner. But there's Lance Armstrong also right on the front of that group. Chris Horner off to the left of our picture, and Ivan Basso in the lime green will be expecting the ball to be toasted as the winner, his teammate. Be a bit of a shock there because it's Mancebo. Armstrong, though, is still a great bike rider, and after all that time out of the sport, you honestly wouldn't think he'd been away.
Absolutely not. He's done a great job of work for the team Astana this afternoon. Team Astana will move to the top of the team competition, and I have to say, I wonder if they've laid down the foundations for some serious attacking later on.
The horrendous weather here in Northern California is going to do nothing to dampen the spirits of rock racing fans around the globe. In particular, Francesco Mancebo from Spain wins stage number 1 in very rainy conditions. We'll be back to continue to bring you results and other info from a wet Santa Rosa when we return to the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. Well, the riders have made their way to Santa Rosa. It was a long, wet day out on the road. It started earlier in Davis. The main field just coming across the finish line, close to 5 minutes behind the winner of Stage 1, Francisco Mancebo. If you're just joining us here on Versus, we didn't have pictures for a lot of the day, but the racing was top-notch. And it was Lance Armstrong and his teammates, three in particular, Chris Horner, Levi Leipheimer, and Jose Chechu Rubiera, who would be driving the chase group at one point to close the gap that at one point was 12 minutes down to about a minute as they entered the streets of Santa Rosa. Well, it continues to rain here. The riders can only hope the weather gets a little bit better tomorrow, but let's look back earlier. It was Mancebo. Once we finally did get pictures, his lead was well established. He'd been out in front since about the 5-mile mark from stage number 1. Keep in mind that the stage over 107 miles in length. But then, as I mentioned, it would be Astana and about 15 other riders who would finally make a break on the main peloton and start to close a gap that was at 12 minutes down to about a minute and a half. Mancebo, however, would have nothing of it. He didn't care that it was raining outside. Nothing would dampen his mood. Lance Armstrong turned into a super domestique for a large part of the day, driving the chase group and protecting Levi Leipheimer as best he could. But at the finish, it would be Francesco Mancebo with a great move of the line just ahead of Jurgen van der Walle, who also had closed down the gap. And then it was Vincenzo Nibali from the Liquigas team who would end up in third. So Spain, Belgium, and Italy are your podium here in stage number 1. A well-deserved victory for Francesco Mancebo. The man did all the work by himself out in front for over 100 miles. That is a long day alone at the front of the peloton and at the front of the race. It was a long day at the office, but he took that well-deserved win on the very wet streets of Santa Rosa. And as we had talked about throughout the day, perhaps the weather contributing to the fact that that chase group unable to close down the gap all the way, but maybe it was a little gamesmanship on the part of Johan Brunel, calling his men back and telling them, don't expend all your energy today. We've got a long week of racing in front of us. There's no question that everyone watching this race, I think, as well as everyone here in attendance, believes that Astana has brought the most depthful as well as the strongest team. But whether that plays out to a victory on the road remains to be seen. Today belongs to Spain and Rock Racing. Francesco Mancebo has shown why he is without a doubt a force to be reckoned with. But the big question now for Mancebo as we move on into the week will be, how much energy has he indeed used in this breakaway today? Over 100 miles on his own fighting these elements. Most of it was spent with the wind and the rain coming straight at his face. That camera says it all right there. You have not been able to escape the rain if you were in Northern California, or pretty much throughout the whole state of California over the past couple days. And our riders today were no exception. We will wrap up. More to come here from Santa Rosa. The finish line now, the team cars coming in. Stage 2 tomorrow will go from Sausalito to Santa Cruz. It will be one you will not want to miss. A special time live at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. They will leave the seaside town of Sausalito, go across the Golden Gate Bridge, and then race into Santa Cruz. Who will be tomorrow's winner? You will only find out by logging on to Versus.com and watching us here at Versus. For Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwen, I'm Craig Hummer. So long.